So my agent is Jim McCarthy from Dystel and Goddard's Literary Management in New York City. Um, it's a really old kind of agency. I don't know. Actually, I have no idea how old it is, but it seems to be very old. It's in a very old building, and it's kind of tight quarters. I think it's interesting because I kind of expected. I did go out and visit my agent, and I kind of expected these sort of big, sort of vast spaces, you know, where the agents would sit around and, you know, kind of talk. Because you see a lot of that kind of stuff on TV, but it's really not the case. I mean, there's not a whole lot of space in New York. If all agents were in Seattle, they would be in huge glass buildings and it would be magical. But no, New York is very cramped quarters, I find. Anyway, but this isn't about how I met my agent at his office. This is about how I got him in the first place. And I have to say that it's probably going to be a lot different than all of the other agent responses you hear on the Nightstand, because I did not get my agent with a young adult book. I actually had my agent for about 5 years prior to even selling my young adult book. So, and he was the one who kind of talked me into writing it, which is interesting. My story is really kind of infuriating to a lot of writers because I did everything very backwards. I had a general idea of a story. I hadn't actually started writing it, and I went to a conference, the Willamette Writers Conference down in Portland, Oregon, not Maine, and sat down and did a pitch session, which is just a bunch of aspiring writers sitting around a table with either an agent or an editor. In this case, it was an editor from Penguin. I just did a really quick pitch. I had gone to this pitch session thing the night before where you kind of learned how to do pitches, but it was put on by the film people, not the literary people. So I ended up doing a high concept pitch, which is basically this meets this. So I came in saying, okay, well, it's Dawn of the Dead meets Sex in the City. I have a zombie with a great skincare regimen. And that seemed to be good enough for her. She was like, okay, I need 50 pages by the time I get back from my tour. She was doing the conference circuit because a lot of them happen in the summer. Yeah, I hadn't even written a word of it. And apparently that is a big no-no. You're never supposed to, you're just not supposed to promote something that hasn't been written. So I just kind of threw it out there. It's an idea. Anyway, she was well aware. Always be honest. That's the thing. If you're looking for an agent or an editor, or anyone really, always be honest and let them know exactly where you are in the process. So I was very upfront with her that I hadn't written a word of this, and she was willing to read it when it was done. So I was excited about that, and I got that stuff done. So basically, I had an editor interested before I had an agent, and she kind of led me through the process, and over the course of a 3-month time frame, because basically I decided to start writing when I was, I think it was in 2006, I decided to start writing. That was about May. I met this editor in July, end of July. I had her the first 50 pages of my then crazy mixed up novel by September. She was super interested. She asked me how long it was going to take to get done with it. That was in October. And I just kind of threw out a number. I was like, how about by Christmas? I'll have it to you by Christmas, a finished novel. I'd never even written a novel before. And so I kind of shut the curtains, shut the door, really kind of pounded out exactly what I thought my ideal reader. And writers write for an ideal reader, and that's just someone either who's like them or shares the same sensibilities. You don't know if that ideal reader actually exists, but if you write for that person versus trying to write for everybody, you get a clearer voice in your work. So I did that, and you know, my adult voice is very different from my YA voice in that it's much more vulgar and things like that, which is, neither here nor there because I'm not really promoting my adult stuff. I just wanted to tell you about this piece of it. And anyway, she really surprised me and gave me a huge Christmas present in that she's like, I'm going to send this up to my senior editor and we're going to look at acquiring it. She asked, do you have an agent? Of course I didn't. I didn't have an agent. And she was like, well, you better get one. So what I did was this. I went through all the books that I thought were similar to mine. And there weren't a whole lot that were similar to mine because I had really written a comedy about zombies. And everything at that point was about urban fantasy. That was kind of the thing, about sympathetic, vampires who were heroic and things like that. And my heroine in my book is not in any way sympathetic. In fact, she's cruel and vulgar and awful. And she's awful through the whole thing. That's what I kind of loved about her. So what I did was I kind of looked at all these things that were happening in urban fantasy, and I went through each of the books. And a lot of authors, most authors, will write an acknowledgement section in their book, thanking all the people that have helped them get that book together. And one of the people that they always thank is their agent. So the ones that I thought were closest to mine, I, pulled those out. And there's a lot easier ways to do this now. You could use agentquery.com, that kind of stuff. But what I did was I went online then and I found out which of those agents took online queries. And so I wrote up a letter, and it was just a really quick, off-the-cuff letter that really was using my voice, which is the same voice in the book. And so it was pretty sarcastic, and it was exactly like I talk. I think everything I did was I think the reason why I was able to get a book sold, get a book written, or whatever, is that I never second-guessed the idea that the way I talked, or the sort of scattered way that I put ideas together, was in any way abnormal. I was just like, yeah, it's fine. This is just how it is. And so I think that voice was what captured Jim, who was the first agent that responded. There were several agents that responded, but and some that didn't at all, and some that still haven't after this many years, was the fact that I was just kind of not blasé, but I was really sort of nonchalant and very casual, and the tone matched the tone in the book, and the other piece was that I had an offer coming in on the book, so it was much easier for him to say yes. And whether I could write another book afterwards was kind of shocking, probably to him, because the whole thing seemed to be really a lark. I have to say that. It was really kind of a weird thing that it even happened. I'm shocked every time I think back on it. Anyway, that's how I got my agent. It was like a huge con. I finagled it. I had an offer. I don't know what to say.